Hello, and welcome to The Storied Human. I'm Lynn Thompson. My guest today is Matthew Kazdan. He's the International Development Specialist at Tangelic, a nonprofit organization whose goal is to attack energy poverty and create meaningful impact in underserved communities. Matthew transformed his life into one of service, advocating for energy equity and sustainable development. Through his work at Tangelic, Matthew designs and implements programs that address energy poverty while promoting equity and climate resilience. Matthew's story is not only about professional achievements, but also about his deep commitment to empowering people and uplifting communities. And there's a lot to unpack here that I really look forward to talking to you about helping people connect, um, helping people with energy, and how that really has lots of fingers in other pies. Like people don't always connect that. And I'd love to hear about it. So, welcome, Matthew. It's nice to have you here.
Yes, it's nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, you just graduated from, you got a master's degree?
That's correct, yes.
And what is that in?
So I recently got my master's degree in international affairs with a focus on international politics. So my background,
Fantastic.
or at least academic background, is more on the political side, which, as you said, is has its fingers in everything, and especially with energy, clean energy,
Yeah,
and policy, just ever more prevalent now.
I think that's a great background. And I noticed that one of the partners that Tangelic works with is an NGO. I just think there's a lot of overlap now and people can collaborate. People don't always make that connection. I have a friend who's in the climate space and she has made a lot of those connections for me. Um, it's sort of fascinating what you can do when you improve people's access to sustainable energy and renewable energy. So, did you envision that you would end up in this area? It's a different kind of area from what you might have first thought you would do.
Yeah, I honestly I didn't think I'd end up here because in my background, at least my academic background, I was, like I said, focused way more on the politics, policy side of things. And in undergrad, I actually had an internship where we worked with international delegations on a variety of issues, really, and different, just everything, really, from like climate to women's involvement to every sector you can imagine. And that not only gave me a really good opportunity and experience working with international delegations, but also being able to like move all the pieces around, partner them with local organizations, and like actually seeing that tangible effect on the ground in people's lives. So that kind of opened my eyes to a bit of both worlds where I could use my background with policy and international affairs, as well as bringing the nonprofit side of things into the equation and actually making a difference that I could see like on the ground in people's day-to-day lives. So that's kind of how I got sucked into the the nonprofit realm.
I do love that because I think people can get stuck on the meetings and the policy making
Mhm.
and the discussions and the standards and meanwhile you're making a real impact, which I love that you can see that what you do is literally making an impact. So tell me more about the work Tangelic does because I was amazed. I really was impressed. You're all over the place and you do such meaningful work in Ghana, in particular. Your sort of flagship program. Could you tell us about that and the impact of solar that you've introduced?
Mm. Yeah, of course. So we are working right now with a heavy focus in Ghana on clean energy and renewable energy for rural communities. That's how we're starting out. We're going to expand to not only different parts of Ghana and the region, but hopefully throughout the global south, kind of down the road as we scale up. And our main project right now is Sunrise Spectrum, which in short works to provide different solar, like community cells, solar panels, different forms of clean energy, such as, and like different utilities that focus on it, such as clean cook stoves to these groups. Because one thing that's at the center of Tangelic is recognizing that these groups contribute bare like so minimally to the amount of global emissions, but they're the ones feeling the brute force of it the most. Whereas like a lot of countries kind of in the, as you call the global north, are contributing so much, but while they may be feeling the effects a little, not nearly as much as their countries kind of in the global south, as you could call it. Plus, it's important to note that the countries that are contributing also have the resources to better adapt to that. So with that in mind, that's why we're focusing in the global south and especially in Ghana to start out because they have a fairly robust kind of infrastructure in a way, and they're already looking at like really cool solutions, honestly. A lot of places haven't adapted yet. So we're focusing on providing these clean energy sources to these groups. And what I really like is it doesn't just, decrease emissions, which obviously it does, but it's the cascading effect that it has because with that comes economic empowerment because all these solar cells and all these different things we're providing creates an economy. So there's jobs to repair them, manufacture them. Also, with that comes the ability to start businesses, have electricity and light after dark, clean electricity. So that improves not only the ability to start a business, but children's education because they could actually study after dark now. And this whole cascading, amongst others, one big thing is the woman's empowerment because now, as I mentioned, like women could start businesses, get more involved, not spend so much time at home. So it's this cascading effect. Just from one simple thing of clean energy comes more than just a reduced emissions, which is something I think that's really important.
I think that's so good for us to learn about because, as I said, I just recently made those connections and I was really surprised. And I don't think people connect the disadvantages and the poverty that can be connected to climate change, like the continuing of climate change. And like you said, no remediation because they don't have the funds, the resources. They're not huge companies around them like in the
Mm.
global north, as you said. So we have to be aware of that. But what I was struck by when I was reading about this and what you've been talking about, I just want to pull it out and make it more clear. We don't even think about how people live without electricity. And there's so many things that happen because of that. Like you were saying, you can't study at night. You can't, read. You can't do your homework. You can't, it's really hard because you don't have light
Mm.
or you don't have sustainable energy for light. And you're changing people's lives in ways that are so much more than just giving them solar. It's just amazing to me. And the idea that women can have businesses, it's very cool. I did read something too about indoor pollution, like you're helping with that because there's solutions right now pollute their environment inside where they live. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's definitely a big problem, especially when I think it's most prevalent when we're talking about cooking, because traditional like gas powered stoves and stoves that release emissions, like you're, in an enclosed space, if you don't have proper ventilation or everything like, a kitchen or like restaurant kitchen or something, you're just sitting in all of those emissions. And especially with traditional food in Ghana, it's a very long cook time, high heat process. So you could imagine just the sheer amount of emissions that come just per day based on your meals. So with the clean cook stoves, this allows, all those emissions to be pulled so they could still keep up their traditional cuisine and flavors, but without the harmful emissions, which is kind of the best of both worlds.
That's amazing. Yeah, I wouldn't even have thought of that, honestly, like the gas in such a small enclosed space. So there's so many advantages to offering that come out of this one project. So what pulled you to this? I'm very interested in how you made this connection and got involved.
Yeah, so I've always been interested in the environmental side of things, especially within my background with policy and international affairs. The environment has always been something super important to me, especially my upbringing. I was raised like always in nature, always going out on hikes. So obviously, the environment nature was very high for me. So this allowed me to kind of combine the best of all the worlds. I get to work with different NGOs, nonprofits, so on and so forth. So that brings in the international part for me slash policy. I get to help people on the ground in their day to day lives. That brings in my like newly explored interest for NGOs, and it's good for the environment. So that pulls in that. So it's really the trifecta of
Perfect
everything I
storm.
enjoy
Yeah,
doing.
that's so
Exactly.
good. I'm very impressed with the work that your organization does. I'm very impressed with what you do. And I just think there are just so many benefits to feeling like you're making an impact and truly helping people. It's so much more than a career or a job when you're actually seeing that. Um, and that makes me feel really good about what you do. So what's the future hold? Like, what are your plans? You said you might expand, and I'm wondering what you see in the future.
Yeah, so what we're working towards is once we get it kind of in the groove, so to speak, and scale up with our current projects in Ghana, an important thing for us is collecting all the data through we have obviously a lot of partners, including ones on the ground working with these communities that already have, experience and a relationship with these communities. So once we get all this data about everything you can imagine regarding the project, really, we could see how we can improve. And then once we know that, we could start scaling out to other countries in the region, well, communities, and then countries in the region, and down the road throughout the global south. So we're also looking at do kind of a similar thing, but again, down the road in South America as well, with more, rural communities that are not necessarily like connected on the grid in these large cities, but one step at a time.
Oh, but that would be great. Yeah, so it's nice to know there's a lot on the horizon. Is there
Yeah.
anything else you'd like to tell us about this work and how we could get in touch and maybe help fund it?
Yeah, with this type of work in general, I think it's super important to kind of get in touch and with all these different NGOs, nonprofits, what have you, and see what they're doing. I know everyone's heard this a million times, but as it is a nonprofit, financial assistance is very appreciated, which is how we're able to do this work we're doing. So, if you're interested, it'd be amazing. Check out our website. We have podcasts on all the social media channels you can imagine. Check out all the work we're doing, and I guarantee you're going to be impressed and very moved.
I really was. It's a beautiful website. So that's
Thank you.
tangeliclife.org.
Correct.
Okay.
Or sorry, tangelic.org.
Tangelic.
Yeah, .org. Sorry about that.
There's no life. I think
Oh
it's
no.
Tangelic. I think I made a mistake and it was
Yeah.
life. Let me see.
Oh, no, Tangelic Life. Sorry, we just reorganized some
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
I made the same mistake. I was typing tangelic.com, even tangeliclife.org. Okay, good. I like to say it because sometimes people don't read the show notes. So I'll put that in the show notes. Is there any way that people could talk directly to you, contact you about what you're doing, or if they have any questions?
Yeah, so if you reach out to our kind of contact us page on the website, you could write your message in and then it'll kind of get rerouted to the relevant person.
That's great.
Um, yeah.
Anything else that you'd like to tell us that I covered?
I just want to first thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun. I've only been on a few podcasts before, so this was a great, great
It
experience.
is
I
fun.
loved it.
It
I
is.
want to, yeah, I want to
I
thank
love it
everyone
too.
listening. And yeah, just
Aw,
go and support your NGO or nonprofit for whatever particular field you're interested in. And yeah, I want to thank you again on behalf of Tangelic. We look forward to hearing from you guys.
that's so good. Thank you. I feel like we really help people understand this is vital work. And it's like I said a million times, but it's so important to say it's connected to so many other benefits in people's lives. Just this one initiative that we were talking about has so many wonderful, far-reaching, benefits. And I don't think, like I said, I don't think people connect it right away. And it's so good to know about. And I thank you so much for taking the time. And I admire the work that you do. Thank you so much for being on.
Yes, of course. Thank you again, and thanks for having me.
Have a good one.